Jeremiah 6:14 ranks as one of my favorite Bible verses, and let me stress, as I already have in a few previous videos in this series, my definition of a favorite Bible verse can be quite different from most people. My favorite Bible verses, they don't necessarily have to be happy, uplifting, and positive, ones that you would put on a fridge magnet. Mine can be quite sobering, as is the case with Jeremiah 6:14, a verse that I came across when I was only 20. And it's shaped the way I've viewed my Christianity ever since. In Jeremiah 6:14, speaking of the corrupt religious leaders of Jeremiah's day, Jeremiah wrote, "They dress the wound of my people as though it were not serious. Peace, peace, they say, when there is no peace." So why would that be a favorite Bible verse of mine? Well, stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Leeming, where the mission of this channel is to provide sound theology in a brief amount of time. And so if you're looking for short and concise Christian videos, please do consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. All right, picture your stereotypical Christian movie. It starts out with a very dire situation, a very hopeless situation, but by the end of the movie, God shows up, God pulls through, and everyone lives happily ever after. Perhaps it was a marriage on the rocks that God restores, and a strange relationship between an adult child with a parent who's dying of cancer, has a come to Jesus moment, and so the movie ends with them reconciled. Or a situation where the movie starts out with someone who is standing up for what is right, for what is true, but faces all kinds of opposition. They're mocked and ridiculed, but by the end of the movie, God pulls through, shows that that person is right, and their detractors laud that person as a hero. Well, if only that had been the case with the prophet Jeremiah. Okay, so here's the background story to Jeremiah 6:14. Jeremiah had been commissioned by God to be a prophet to the Jewish people. And yet throughout Jeremiah's entire ministry, they refused to listen to what he had to say. Even in the end, when God came through, when God showed the people that Jeremiah had been right all along, they still refused to listen. In fact, according to tradition, they ended up stoning poor Jeremiah to death. How's that for a happy ending? You see, God had called the Jewish people, his chosen people, to live differently. They were to believe different things. They were to live by a different ethical standard to that of the surrounding nations. God had given them his holy laws on Mount Sinai via Moses. He had given them a moral code that was in many ways quite radically different from that of the surrounding nations, especially in the realm of sexuality. In short, God had called them to be separate. He had called them to be a holy nation committed to his purposes. And yet, if you know anything about Old Testament history, more often than not, the people, they didn't want to live according to God's ways. They wanted to live just like their pagan neighbors. And so it was up to the religious leaders, it was up to the priests, the prophets, to prevent this waywardness, to set the record straight. And yet, more often than not, they too didn't want to do what God required. They said, it's okay, you believe whatever you want to believe, you live any way that you want to live. They dressed up the wound of their people as though it were not serious. They said, peace, peace, when there was clearly no peace. So feeling the call to preach at the ripe old age of 20, when I first read this verse, Jeremiah 6:14, it really struck me how easy it would be to compromise the gospel message, how easy it would be to sugarcoat the truth. As Christians, we are called to be different. We are called to believe different things. We are called to behave in different ways from those of the surrounding nations. And yet, it's distressing to watch, especially in just the past few years, of how worldly the church is becoming. How so many people, they don't want to live according to God's standards, but they want to live just like the world. And perhaps most distressing of all is how little pushback there seems to be coming from church leadership. In fact, it seems to be many of them who are encouraging this wayward shift. Peace, peace, they say, when there is no peace. Now, if you'd like to watch the other 4 videos in my series on my favorite Bible verses, click on the end card over there. And if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. Thanks so much. I hope to see all of you next Thursday. Bye for now, and God bless.